Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe podcast. I am your host, Joe, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Joe.
Oh man, it's the episode I've been waiting for my whole life. This is it. I get to talk about my favorite movie for fun, for like, oh man, I couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah. And it's also come at such an opportunity. I mean, you kind of planned a little bit because we graduated. Also, yes, we did it, everyone who's listening. We'll get to the actual content in a second, but let us jerk ourselves around off for what are we doing, Joe? Are we
Masturbation.
Masturbate. Let us masturbate for a little bit. And then we'll get to the actual content. We graduated. We did it.
The world did not explode before we could grab our diplomas, even though our diplomas are being emailed to us.
Right.
I mean, mailed. Not emailed.
Mailed,
That'd be kind of cool if they were emailed to us.
Here's your digital diploma. It's like, I don't even get a piece of paper anymore. No, that's bad for the environment. It's like, oh, fuck. No, a meteor did not strike campus, did not decimate everything. No zombie apocalypse happened or, like, evolved out of the current weird pandemic we found ourselves in. It was just, we got there. We did the shit. Now we'll get our diplomas in the mail or email. We don't really know. But so, to go along with that, Joe, you picked one of, I know, your favorite movies of all time, with honors, starring a one Brandon Fraser and a one Joe Pesci and a couple of other people. The only other person I remember is Patrick Dempsey. I don't remember any of the actors' names, but I see Patrick Dempsey and that fucking hair, and I'm just like, God damn, that's Patrick Dempsey.
And the 5 o'clock shadow too, man. Like, oh my god.
Yes, indeed. So, to get into this, do you have anything to say before I start doing, because you picked it, I gotta do the lightning fast recaps. Do you have anything to say before I do that?
No, man. I've been pumped to talk about this, so get right into it. Let me hear the recap.
Sorry, drinking water. Okay, so, in a 3, and a 2, and a 1. Baby! We start off this movie with a radio show, which is fucking perfect because the parallels to us just keep on going, you know? And it's just Patrick Dempsey doing his little radio show. He's got his cock out. More on that later. And then we start to see a one Brandon Fraser going out taking a jog. And the movie opens up on a nice little seashells. She Sells Sanctuary by The Cult. And I heard that and I was just like, oh yeah, fuck, I forgot about some of the music in this movie. I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. And so you just see him running around. They're on Harvard campus. That's where they go to school. It's a movie about college kids, specifically college kids in their last year doing their thesis shit, like all this other sort of stuff. We'll get into a little bit of that later. But so, Brendan Fraser's character, Monty, he's doing his little run around, you know, just doing his exercise or whatever. And he comes back, and so he's going off and he's talking about his thesis with one of the professor advisors that he's got, and his professor advisor, kind of an asshole, but you know, he's still kind of like, yeah, I like what you're doing here. It sounds really pretentious and it uses a lot of big lingo words that I didn't really fully comprehend, or maybe I just wasn't really paying attention because I was bored because it was government shit, Joe. But he was like, oh yes, that is good shit right there. And I wasn't quite sure if he was talking about the opening paragraph that Fraser was talking about, or if he was talking about the shit that he just snorted up his nose. But I guess that we can leave that up to the imagination. Anyway, more stuff goes along. Computers in 1994, those are weird. Had a little bit of a problem, which for Monty's character, not so good, because a lot of his thesis was on that. So to combat this, he grabs the 10 chapters that he has already written, and he's like, I'm going to go Xerox this crap at the library, or wherever the Xerox thing is. Probably not the library, because that library is locked, which we'll get into right now. As he's running across campus, he trips, and then his entire thing comically, like the entire manila envelope with all of his thesis, comically flies into the air, and then down a vent into the boiler room of the library. And he's like, oh shit, I gotta go in and get that. And one of his other roommates, Courtney, is there with him, and she's like, all right, come on, I know the guard. And they go up, and Courtney manages to sneak him in. And so Monty goes down to the boiler room, but oh no, the thesis isn't there. And then he finds a hobbit, played by Joe Pesci. And he's just in the boiler room. He's got his own little setup, and he's just burning all the pages. And Monty's like, hey, what the fuck? And then Joe Pesci goes like, fucking samurai on his ass, and he's like, get the fuck out of here, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. And he's like, I just want the thesis, it's my life's work, please give it to me. And Joe Pesci is all like, what size underpants do you wear? And he's like, what? And he's like, forget that, bitch. I want a glazed donut, but I want it to be fucking perfect glaze. And he's like, I'll get you a donut. And then Monty's a fucking narc, and he sells out Pesci. And then the cops come, they take him away. And then he's like, oh, but we didn't find the thesis anywhere. And he's like, no, I need that thesis from that fucking hobbit. So he goes to the trial that's going on, where there's a bunch of what I assume to be, maybe not all homeless people, but people that have also broken the laws in several ways, like trespassing and being like publicly intoxicated, that sort of stuff. Pesci, his name is Simon, in the movie. Simon manages to like witty his way out of a lot of his charges, but then the judge is like, you're an asshole, so I'm holding you for in contempt or whatever the fuck that legal lingo is. So Brendan Fraser's character is like, I'll pay the $50 bail for him because he's like, I gotta sweet talk this fucking hobbit so I can get my shit out of him. And so over the course of the movie, Pesci and Monty, he's switching the actors' names and actual names. Simon and Monty have this little thing going on where it's like, okay, Monty will do a favor for Simon, and in return, each one of those favors will grant him like 1 or 2 pages back of his thesis work. And so over the movie, we come to learn more about both of these characters as people. We come to learn how they see the world. Monty's sort of seeing like, oh, okay, there's more to the world than just my thesis, and like I should probably learn to see people as actual people and that sort of a thing. You have things like, whatchamacallit, you find out Simon has a past, and Monty is all like, oh, that past actually kind of parallels my past, which we will probably get into a little bit more, because that's a nice emotional little nugget there in the story. And then they help each other out with some of this stuff. There's a beautiful heartbreaking sort of ending where we see, spoiler alert, this is a recap, of course, the death of Simon, but in his death, he brings out really the humanity and just the love in a lot of the other people that he had been around, including Monty, Courtney, Patrick Dempsey's character Everett, and then the flaccid pussy that is Jeff. So those 4 characters, all the roommates that are living at Harvard, and they're dealing with Simon and all that sort of stuff. But yes, that is the, in broad terms, lightning fast recap for this movie, which we will probably now go into much greater detail, because as you said, this is one of your favorite movies, baby.
Joe, that's my favorite recap. That was good. It was a little bit longer,
yes,
but there was a lot of comedy in there. the fucking narc line. Oh my god.
He was a fucking narc. They were like, all of the roommates were just like, yo, come on, just give him the, like, they were helping. They put a magnifier up to 4 different glazed donuts, and they're just like, okay, let's find the one that is like the most perfect glaze for these goddamn glazed donuts. And then he's like, I'm just calling the cops. And then all the roommates are like, why are you gonna do that? And then he's like, fuck it, I'm doing it. And I'm like, man.
All right. So as Joe said, this isn't one of my favorite movies. This is the movie. This is the favorite movie. Nothing beats this for me. I could watch this for the rest of my life and die a happy man. I have nothing wrong. To me at least, there's nothing wrong with this movie. It is perfect. I love it. It is everything to me. When I show somebody this movie, because nobody actually knows what has ever heard of this movie. Nobody.
I didn't know what this movie was until you showed it to me like a year or 2 ago, and you were just like, yeah, this is my favorite movie of all time. And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, nobody. It has a crazy cast, but nobody has ever heard of it.
Yeah.
Because it got really bad reviews, like really bad.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you, do you know what like the current Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie is? Because I looked it up.
I forget what the current one is, but I believe it's like a 7 or something like that.
It's 17. It's a little bit better than that.
Okay.
But the critic rating is a 17. The audience rating is like a 73. So very, very distinct difference there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure even when it came out, like at the end of the year rankings for like movies, it was ranked. Somebody ranked it as like top 10 worst movies of the year in '94. Yeah, I don't know, but yes, this is my favorite movie. So here it is. So with honors, this this takes place in 1994, 93 into 94, and it was also shot in 94 as well. And just a little backstory of how I found this movie. As I've mentioned before in other podcasts, I was in high school. Was I in high school at this time? Yes, I was in high school. I was like 16, and I was doing my Friday night movie night, as I've mentioned plenty of times before, and I was trying to find like a new movie on those nights. I was like, oh, but I was an idiot. I would always wait till like right to sit down to find the new movie, and then after like an hour of searching for the movie, would already have eaten all my popcorn and candy. Be like, okay, now we're gonna watch the movie. But
But Joe, that's the most authentic theater experience of all time, isn't it? You sit
is
down,
true.
you watch those trailers, you shove all that shit in your face, and then the movie starts, and you reach your eagle little boy hand into that giant tub of popcorn. You get elbow deep, and then you realize, oh shit, I'm out of popcorn.
Exactly, and that's what I'm looking forward to the most after all this COVID stuff is over. Is going to movies with you, man.
Hell
Anybody,
yeah!
but especially you. But so I needed a movie, and I think my mom like told one of her friends like, "Oh yeah, Joey's been watching a lot of older movies, and just like checking out new ones like every week, like a lot of '80s movies." And my mom's friend wrote down this list of movies, and she's like, "Check these out." And on the list, the first one on the list was this one called With Honors. And I saw that Brendan Fraser was in it, and I love Brendan Fraser in The Mummy, so I was like, hell yeah,
Never
I'm gonna
seen it.
watch this. And also, I saw that it took place at Harvard, and when I was a wee little boy, it was my dream to go to Harvard. And then after freshman year of high school, I realized that wasn't happening. Um, so I was like, you know what? I'm like, this seems like a lot of the stuff that I would like. And I watched it that night when I got the recommendations, and I thought to myself, I was like, wow, that was really freaking good. I like that. Um, and it wasn't until I rewatched it, I'd say like my senior year of high school, that on the second watch it hit me, and I was like, whoa. I'm like, I actually like love this thing. Man, it 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 was this. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was like senior year going into college and stuff like that. But I watch it, and yeah, it blew me away the second time. I'm like, all right, this is it. I'm like, this thing is special to me. I'm like, I want to show this to people. And so like whenever I do actually show this to someone, like since nobody knows about it, it's kind of like a special thing. Like
Mm.
every once in a while when you sit somebody to watch a movie, it's kind of just like, oh, you want to sit down and watch a movie or whatever. Like who knows? Maybe the person gets up halfway through, or like doesn't really care if they miss like a 20-minute chunk or something like that. But when I show people this movie, I'm like, all right, everybody, this movie is very near and dear to me. I need you to turn off your phones, cancel all your plans, lock the doors, sit down, make sure you went pee, stock up on food, and don't say a word, because this is basically my holy book.
This is your soul in cinematic form.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate.
Thank you. And you're welcome. Yeah, it. I remember when you first showed me this movie, and I was like, "Well, there's no superheroes." Aw, man. Um, so I wasn't really all that interested in it, and I remember watching it and thinking that was actually a really good movie. Then when I sat down to watch this, I watched it the same day we're recording this. I woke up this morning and I was just like, "All right, I'm gonna watch With Honors." And let me tell you, Joe, I really didn't want to watch it. I was in a similar place with where you were at with like Casino Royale, where I was just like, okay, I got a movie I gotta watch for this. Do I really want to though? And I was like, I really don't feel like sitting down and watching this movie. And I sat down and I was like, okay, you gotta do it for the pod. You gotta do it for the boys, for the podcast, for you. I had to do it for you. And I sat down. I clicked play. I rented on Amazon Prime. Thank you, Bezos. And the moment the Colts song came on,
Yeah.
I was just sort of like, this might be a good time. And as the movie progressed, I will say the first half of the movie, where Simon and Monty, that is Joe Pesci and Brendan Fraser's characters, are more apprehensive towards each other, I wasn't quite as into. I was kind of just like, yeah, it's a song and dance or whatever that they're doing, blah, 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 blah. And then when the movie, because there's a very distinct turning point where it's then all of a sudden like, okay, now Pesci is basically the fifth roommate. Well, he does become the fifth roommate because of he Social Security and all that sort of shit. But when it becomes the actual fifth roommate, and I was just like, oh yeah, now everyone's just kind of like friends, and they're just going through the trials of living together and all that sort of crap, and I'm just like, this is good. I like this even more so. So like there was a bit of apprehensiveness that I had towards watching this, but all that was quickly swept away with most of the movie, and I was very happy about that because I was like, man, I don't want to sit here and then be in a bad mood watching this and then come into this and be like, yeah, no, I had a bad time watching it to you, and then like shit on your soul. And then I know sometimes you're into that, but I felt with this, it probably wasn't, appropriate. And I was just like, oh man, I really don't want to do that to you. It's just so nice for you to want to share this with me. But I had a fun time watching it.
I am happy to hear that. And talking about the cult song, She Sells Sanctuary, man. The opening's great. I love the freaking opening. Having Everett talking with, like, we get like I forget what it was. It's almost like it sounds like church music, like choir music. It's like, oh, yes. Or Halo music, right? But it's like the college.
I'll make a note of that in a second. You finish your thought.
So it's like kind of like that, like stereotypical, like, I don't know how to describe it, like college, like not alma mater, but like as soon as you hear it, you're like, wow, I feel like I should be like writing in a leather notebook and drinking whiskey. And you hear that, we get the beautiful scenery of a snow-covered Harvard campus, and you have Everett come on, and he's doing his radio show, and he's like, it's a beautiful Sunday morning. The white shroud has gifted us with like 4 inches of snow at Harvard campus, and he's talking about how like the seniors are over their head, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like, this is great. Like, it's just a great intro, and during this, we also see Monty come out of his house, the stereotypical like college house. It's pretty cool. And he walks out. He's dressed up in his clothes. He's kind of stretching a little bit. And Everett goes, a little music, maestro. And then, boom, the drum kicks. Yeah. And then the drum kicks in and fucking, oh, it's such a great song. It hypes you up. It's a great opening. Joe, I'm not sure if you know this, but on the drive over to school sometimes, from our apartment, like if I had an exam in the morning, I would play this song on the drive over to hype me up.
Get those vibes swimming through your body, just like all the music injected into your brain. You're just like, oh fuck yeah, I got the fucking music of my soul pumping through me right now.
Yeah, it's a great opening. And Joe, I want to hear what were you gonna say about the Halo thing?
Yes. So music, I noticed it. I think during the boiler room scene, because originally I wrote music in the boiler room scene sounds like ODST. Very specifically, Halo 3 ODST is what a lot of the ambient music in this movie sounds like. And then as the movie continued, I realized it's just kind of like the atmospheric ambient music that plays throughout the entire thing. And I was like, holy, like, I feel like Halo 3 ODST, like the guys who made that score, I don't know if that was I'm gonna forget his name now, but the guy who made all the Halo music, I don't know if he was the one making it then or if it was a different team at this point, because I think Bungie was still making ODST. That might have been one of their last ones. But yes, I was just like, what the fuck? Why does this remind me so much of Halo?
Because it really does. It's kind of like, just like there's no vocal or there's no lyrics. It's just kind of like these weird ethereal vocals and the music.
I don't even know if there's vocals. It's just like the soft like single piano keys being hit, and then like the very mellow jazzy bass that's like in there as well. I'm just like, this is like intense over to like, if you switched the Halo ODST soundtrack with the With Honor soundtrack, I honestly don't know if I would have noticed. That's how close they sound.
Yeah, no, and it's good. Like, it really sets the mood for a lot of the scenes and just the overall tone of the movie. And that's one thing I love. I love the soundtrack. But the one thing I really want to talk about is the cast / characters for this movie. Holy shit. Okay. So we got Brendan Fraser as Montgomery Kessler, main character, or Monty.
AKA Monty.
I love him. I love B. Fraser. I feel bad he kind of fell off the map besides that whole Doom Patrol thing, but
Which is great, and everyone should watch it.
yes, exactly. And then we have not Mariah Carey, but Mariah Kelly as oh my goodness, why am I forgetting her name?
Courtney.
Courtney, yes. And Courtney's like an art student, and then we have Patrick Dempsey.
Courtney's sporting the most 90s DiCaprio hair I have ever seen on anyone other than Leonardo DiCaprio in the 90s.
Yeah, she rocks the short hair look, definitely. And then we have Patrick Dempsey as Everett Calloway, and he's kind of like his dad's a rich guy, and he's just kind of like a playboy who's like, oh yeah, I'm a fancy man, drinking my wine, sleeping with my ladies, smoking my cigarettes, and having my radio show.
Radio show with a cock.
And then, oh man, let me bring it up. I want to get the actor's name right for Jeff.
God, this guy.
Okay, so the guy's name is Jeff Hawks. That's the actual character's name. But
Which is such a cool name for such a lame-ass character.
Yeah, and the actor's name is Josh Hamilton. And those make up the four roommates, and they live in this really, really freaking cool house, where it's like, two things. They live in this sick house where it's like, oh, like I dreamed of like having roommates like that and living like that throughout college. Like it's really, really, like when you see the house, you're like, oh, that's a college house. And I was like, why does it look so kind of almost familiar? And I looked up like where this was filmed, and not all of it was filmed at Harvard. Actually, barely any of it was filmed at Harvard.
Yeah, I would have guessed that.
That the house is actually at the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana campus.
Shut the fuck up.
Right. So that's where our friend Mark goes, and that's like stereotypical like Midwest like college houses. But if you're a bit of a emo fan, you'll also know that's where the American football house is.
Oh my god!
It is not the same house, but it is strikingly similar. And I'm like, yes, that's why the aesthetic is like the same.
Oh my! So many of the things that make up who you are, Joe, are like the planets, the cultural planets are aligning right now to the point where it's like your music, your friends, this movie, it's all making sense.
Yeah. It's. I looked it up because I was like, you know what? I'm like, there's not too much info on this movie. Let me tell you, basically all the info is like, yes, this is one of Brendan Fraser's first movies and one of Patrick Dempsey's, and it was considered to be terrible. And I was like, well, thanks for all that info. But so those are the four roommates. They live in that awesome house, and our other big character is Simon, who is the homeless man that Brendan Fraser not necessarily eventually befriends, but kind of gets into a contract with. And he's played by Joe Pesci, and he's awesome. But one of the last big actors is, do you know who plays Professor Buchanan?
Wait, is Buchanan the asshole professor that Pesci stands up to?
Yes, and that guy is the same guy as Monty's advisor.
Oh, is it? I didn't even fucking notice that.
It's because he has glasses on during the lecture that it was kind of a little
interesting.
Lose it.
Okay,
but do you know who the actor is?
No, I didn't recognize him from anything.
It's Gore Vidal, the politician.
That means nothing to me. I am very ignorant of politics. What did he do? You're gonna tell me because you have a plastic brick in front of you. Anyone else who's listening to this is just like, he doesn't fucking know this. I'm like, I didn't know who wrote the fucking Communist Manifesto, and one of my friends told me that. They're like, yeah, like something Marx, and I was like, who's that? And they're like, the Communist Manifesto. I'm like, oh, I've heard of that thing. It's a book, right? And they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Gore Vidal was like this American like writer, and basically he was like this big intellectual dude. For like, he had a lot of like opinions on politics and stuff, and he was like this writer. He was actually openly bisexual, and he was basically this big like, I guess like, I don't know, person.
Was it like a celebrity politician kind of thing?
Yeah, it was kind of more of like a public figure.
Okay.
But I was like, I always thought the dude looked familiar, and then I finally like looked it up, and I was like, Gore Vidal, what the fuck? So, what a strange cast of people, and that's
Yeah.
pretty much the whole cast right there. Like you don't, there's other
Yeah,
little
everyone
side
else.
characters.
Yeah, everyone else has like a line or two of dialogue and shows up for maybe like a minute, but that's pretty much it.
And so these five characters, I'll say, including the roommates and Joe Pesci, I love them. I love them all.
Let's say 4.5 because Jeff really is just one flaccid pussy.
Yeah, even Jeff's you need Jeff there. Like I hate Jeff, but the movie I would never, if someone said, "Hey, you can watch this movie," and Jeff just never shows up, I would probably say no. I want to keep him there because he's such a fucking ass. And you know what?
Yeah.
This is gonna sound so stupid. You know what I hate most about Jeff?
Is that he's a flaccid pussy?
It's the fact that he washes the fucking dishes with gloves on. What the fuck? Pissed me off. I was like, oh man, that really fits his personality.
He doesn't like to touch the soggy food, Joe. God forbid.
Oh man, but even Jeff, these characters, they're great. They're real. They're very real characters. They look a little old to be in college, if I will say myself.
Yeah, they look like they're 30.
But I buy it. When I was younger, I'm like, that's what I'm gonna look like when I'm in college. And I look at myself in that.
That's what every kid thinks. You just see an older person, you're like, oh yeah, you're a high schooler. Oh yeah, you're a college student. Like the Spider-Man trilogy, Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy.
Oh,
All of those kids in fucking high school are like 35. It's so stupid.
freaking Maggie Gyllenhaal is. I'm like, wow, that's what high school girls look like.
It is not at all what high school girls look like. 1 in 1,000, maybe.
Okay. So with this movie, I know we spent a lot of time talking about the characters and stuff, and another thing just two things we don't have to talk about too much, but that I love about this is just the aesthetic of the movie. This is such a 90s vibe, and it's because it was filmed in the 90s, but between the clothes, the cars and everything,
So many jackets.
oh, the jackets, Joe, the jackets.
There were so many jackets, and everyone, like, I said Courtney had the most DiCaprio hair, which she did, but everyone was rocking, except for Everett, everyone was rocking that goddamn middle part, like, curtain hair or on the forehead look. I was just like, it's so 90s. Everything here is so 90s. The fucking computer, when the power outage happens, that kicks off everything, I just looked at that and I was like, is that what it was like? You had to, like, it would just do that to you. What the fuck?
Yeah. So I love the aesthetic. But Joe, so you ran us through the story really fast, and the story is really simple. It's nothing crazy. It's very meat and potatoes, but at the same time, I love it. I think it works. It doesn't try and do anything crazy. And I just want to know, like, what are your thoughts on the story and stuff like that? Kind of expand upon your quick run through.
Yeah, sure. Like I said before, the beginning of the movie is where I had most, like, it's the slow start, I guess, is what it really is, because again, there's not like a big hook to kind of get me really invested, the way like a lot of other movies might normally do that to me. There's no Game of Thrones twist or turns or anything like that, and like no, like none of the good guys are getting their heads lopped off by the end of the first season. Like none of that sort of shit. So for me, it was just like, okay, just kind of getting to know these characters, and then also, you know, it's in the setting of the final 2 semesters of their college careers, which for a lot of people, especially if you're living through that, isn't exactly something that you want to be reminded of, especially with like the first lines that Everett says. It's like, there's 150 days before those theses are due. And then if I saw that, like, still while I was like in the midst of our last semester, like working on thesis, I'd be like, like I just like have a fucking panic attack. But yeah, then once you meet Joe Pesci, I didn't like Simon when I was rewatching this in the beginning. I was like, he's a real asshole. Like, just give the kid back his goddamn pages. You have no right to take them. Sort of.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, so I found him to be quite an asshole in the beginning. I liked that he was a little bit witty with the judge in the beginning. It shows like he's not a dumbass. He's just like his life has gone down a different path to what a lot of people would consider to be, quote unquote, a normal life or something like that. And then it shows you him trying to get by, like when he asked the woman for a quarter, and then he picks out a whole bunch of newspapers and he starts selling them for a quarter, which is probably pretty illegal, but also I don't think anyone cares. And then also just like all the different bits. The part when I started to actually like Simon again is um, after Monty gives him the Harvard blanket because he's sleeping out in the van and it's really cold and it's just like, all right, I'm gonna give this to you because I don't want you to fucking freeze to death out here. And then the next morning, Simon runs over to him and he's like, all right, here's 3 or 4 pages, like two for the two things and then another two just for the blanket. And then Brandon Fraser is just like, I didn't the blanket wasn't a part of anything, so I don't want to like owe you anything because he still doesn't trust him. He's just like, what, you're giving me two in advance, this is gonna mean something, we have a contract, dude. And he's like, dude, I'm just saying I'm appreciative of what you did for me, all right, that's it. You want me to carry your books? And he's like, what's that gonna cost me? He's like, you're on crutches, just let me fucking carry your books. And so when it's like that sort of stuff started happening, I was like, okay, they're actually being humans to each other and like interacting more so like starting to interact more so like comrades, not friends yet, but more like comrades and acquaintances and that sort of crap. Um, the Again, most of the character development between Monty and Simon, I think, works very well throughout most of the movie. When the turning point happens after Simon leaves because Monty lied to him about staying in the house. He's like, yeah, no, the basement's flooded. You can't stay there. When really it was Jeff being like, I don't want him staying in here. And all the other roommates being like, yeah, I don't know how to feel about this. And then he leaves and he's like, God damn it. Which also, a quick side tangent. When Monty gets all of the rest of his thesis back because after Simon leaves, he sends one of his friends, I guess, to the house during Christmas break. So Monty's the only one left at the house right now, and he's just like he invites this other homeless guy in who has the thesis for him, and he's just like, I'm eating a sandwich. You want a sandwich? And the guy's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And he's like, ham and cheese good? And he's like, with mustard. And then I watch him make this sandwich, and I chalk it up to him just being excited because of wanting to hear about how Simon's doing, but he makes the sloppiest fucking sandwich for that guy. Like,
Terrible
if you look at that
technique.
thing, it's like you fanned out a deck of cards, except it's with lunch meat and bread. And then he put it on a plate and then he gave it to the guy, and he's just like, "Here's your sandwich." I'm like, "That's not a sandwich. That's just a pile of shit." And then the guy just like you see him kind of like pick it up, and when he picks it up, he kind of like when you like shuffle a deck and like it goes all over the place, and then you're kind of like clumping the cards together. He clumps all the shit together, and then he just starts eating the sandwich. But I'm like, you could have at least like, made a competent sandwich for the man. But that's like just something funny and stupid that I saw going into there. And it's also at this point when Brendan Fraser's character Monty then also goes off to try and find Simon, and we find out he's ill from asbestos. Asbestos. I don't know how to. I think it's with a B. And he like his lungs are giving up on him because like he had been exposed to it 20 years prior or something like that. And so that's when both of them, Simon has come to the point now he's like, all right, I've learned to swallow my pride a little bit more. It's so that way I'm not going to refuse Social Security help and like all the stuff that like is entitled to me. And then Monty has come to, actually care about Simon as a person instead of just looking at him and seeing a bum sort of a thing. And he's at that point he's already been like, oh yeah, I threw out my old thesis that was just about stupid governmental pessimistic crap that my advisor would like. I knew my advisor would like, and instead I'm writing about something that I actually believe in. And so it's like both of these characters, it's like it's that thing where it's like they meet, they butt heads, but over time they come to respect each other and form a mutual love for each other, and they better each other because of that relationship that they build. And it's just a really nice and fulfilling thing that they have going on.
Yeah, yeah, they're, oh, man, the actual story, like, there's a bunch of little details that you can miss so easily in this. And I feel like even talking about it, like just hearing you talk, I'm like, oh man, I forgot to mention this. Like it's a very simple introduction, and both Monty and Simon are both kind of assholes to each other at the beginning. Like we talked about it, Monty being a fucking narc. Like they're both being assholes to each other, and eventually, the more and more they get to know each other, we get Simon's. We find out Monty's backstory about that his dad left his family, and so Monty was just raised by a single mother, and that's
And
kind
Uncle
of
Bill took him to Little League practice.
yes, yes, yes. Later on, we find out Simon left his family, and he had a wife and kid, and
A
that
wife and a
parallels
son.
there.
Very
Yep, yep.
clear parallels.
Exactly, and just even seeing slowly but surely, Monty's heart start to soften a little bit. Like specifically, some of the scenes where he falls asleep at his desk and he's looking out at the window, and he's looking at the van. And I remember the one time, I think it was after he lied to Simon. He kind of sat in his room, and Courtney comes up to him. And she's like, "Hey, like, what's going on? Like, I've never seen you like this." And he's like, I don't get, why am I here and he's out there? He goes, what did I do differently? What did he do to deserve this? And it's moments like that, like those small moments where I'm like, wow, I'm like, all right, we're getting that character development. I like it.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good character development seeing that sort of stuff happen. And also, I just real briefly want to then touch on the relationship between Courtney and Monty, because very early on you see that there's like a sort of tension between those two, where Monty very explicitly states that he is at least attracted to her physically when he has the wonderful line, "God, I've never wanted to be a razor so badly in my life," which I thought was both very funny and also very creepy. But I chose not to think about it too much because I like Brendan Fraser. And then, whatchamacallit? Equally strange line, which I know is supposed to be, cute and romantic, but when they're at the pajama party, this is like, the razor line is within the first 10 minutes of the movie. The pajama party is in like the last 30 minutes of the movie or something like that. It's when they actually eventually finally do come together. It's because, Courtney runs out of the party or whatever because someone's guy is being an asshole to her, and Simon has just like gave him a pep talk. He's like, I can see that you love her, and women are great. I had that bit in the library where I just ranted about women, and then everyone told me to shut up because it was a library. But God, women are perfect, and so that gives Monty the confidence to be like, life is short. I gotta go do this. And so he walks out to her, and she's just sitting by the fountain, and he straight up kisses her, and she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm ending our friendship. And then he just keeps kissing her. And I was like, I don't know if cringe or cute. I'm on the fence.
Cute. I love it.
Personally, I'm on the fence. I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
But you seem to be into it, so it's fine.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that's a great scene. I love the comedy. Specifically in the second half of this movie, I really enjoyed it. I think it's just the little bits of comedy with Simon. Mostly it's making fun of Jeff.
Yes, it's very funny whenever he just makes fun of Jeff. The French toast scene, it's like you're watching The Godfather or something.
Yeah.
Because it's like Jeff come down and he's like, French toast? Because Simon's just made French toast, and he's like, I love French toast. And he's like, huh, all right. And then he's like, offers some to him, but he's also just taking his socks out of the oven. So he's like, God, you're just a bum who's made French toast. And he's like, you know why you hate me so much, buddy? And then Jeff's just looking at him. He's like, okay, I'll bite. Why? And then he's like, because you see me, you think I look how you feel. And then Jeff is just like silent. And then Simon just picks, like, no one says a word after this. Simon just picks up the plate of French toast, holds it out in front of him, and then Jeff just takes it and sits down because he's like, oh, he's fucking beating me. Oh, no.
Yes, that is awesome. I also love the New Year's Eve dinner where we find out that Simon decided to cook up Corky, which is Everett's cock.
Yes.
aka his chicken or his rooster that's part of his radio show.
Yes, this is what we were talking about the entire time, if anyone did not know.
And I'm not sure if you noticed this. I noticed this when I watched this back in, I don't know, January, right before like we started this past semester. When Simon pours the wine for Monty, he pours Monty like a half a glass, and then in his
Yeah, and then he
glasses,
pours two full glasses for himself.
I didn't realize that till like back in like one of like the I don't even know. I've seen this movie like 20 times. I'm like I didn't realize it till like the last time I watched it. I'm like holy shit. That was a nice little detail.
He's got a nice white wine, and he pours the appropriate amount into the wine glass for Monty. You know, like a halfway around into the glass, and then he just into his glass, and he pours it, and he fills it all the way up to the top, and there's still more in the bottle. So what does he do? He turns to the other cup next to it, and he fills up that cup with the rest of the wine from the bottle.
It was freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
And so a couple of things I want to touch on. One favorite parts of this movie is the poem that Simon writes on the back of the on the back of Monty's thesis that he gives to the other homeless guy. He's like, all right, if Monty wants to hear something, like read this to him. Do you have any clue where that poem is from?
No, I am not a literary. I'm not familiar with a lot of literary stuff, so I do not know.
It's a Walt Whitman poem from Leaves of Grass, which comes up in the movie. That's the poem.
Whitman's Ghost.
That's the the people at Harvard have mistakenly thought of Simon as Walt Whitman, and he kind of does look like him a little bit. But also, it comes up that they end up reading Leaves of Grass to Simon while he dies on his bed in the last couple of minutes of the movie. But I remember hearing that poem when I was younger and being like, holy shit, that was fucking awesome. Like that shit, because just to nerd out and get a little bit even more cringer, when I was in high school, I really liked poetry and stuff. And I was like, whoa, I'm like, what kind of poem was that? I had to look it up afterwards, and I'm like, oh, it's Walt Whitman. So I love that poem. If I don't know, it's like part of a bigger poem. So if anybody wants to read it, I would just look up with honors Walt Whitman poem, and you'll be able to find it. It's about there's a line about looking through the eyes of the dead and listening to all parties and not taking anything for second or third hand. Like, oh, it's just really great. So that scene when he reads that or when he hears that always gets me. And then also two other things. When Simon meets his son and finally sees him all grown up, that part made me really fucking sad. Specifically when his granddaughter comes out and she's like, "Oh, Daddy, who is that?" And the son's like, "Oh, that's no one, honey. That's no one." And I'm like, "Oh, my heart."
Yeah, that's the lowest point of the movie, because it was Simon's, one of his last requests. He's like, please, I just want to go, at least I just want to see my son before I go, because he knows he's on his deathbed. He knows he's on his way out. And his son sees him, and his son is not like Monty, who I think because of Simon has maybe learned to, be not as angry with his father for what he did, because they understand like everyone is human and they make mistakes, and they feel the repercussions of those mistakes often, especially something as big as what Simon and Monty's father have done. But then seeing Simon's son do the thing that I feel like Simon would have done if he had that opportunity as well, it just sucks, because he's just like, all right, the son is like, I've seen you. You like what you see? Because you weren't a part of any of it. And then the granddaughter comes down. Who is that? And it's like, it's not your grandfather. It's nobody. Like, you will never know this person, and I will never tell you about him. And that's just real fucking low.
Yeah, and like for people who haven't figured it out yet, I'm a bit of an emotional man, specifically when it comes to like art, whether it's books, movies, TV shows, freaking even music albums. I cry a bit, I get into it. I'm very empathetic. Um, so with this movie, there's plenty of times where like I tear up and I sniffle a little bit, right? Like specifically here, I definitely did. But Joe, this ending with the eulogy at the
Mm.
end, every single time, man, every time, no matter what, I bawl. Like I'm talking like full on sniffling. Like it is the most horrific thing. If you were to see me, I look terrible. I just bawl my eyes out, and it makes me so fucking sad. But I want to know, what are your thoughts on the little eulogy scene?
It is. I think it's just a wonderful little closure on the life of Simon, because he affected and was affected by the four housemates of the apocalypse, and the little note that he leaves for them, because they're of course the only four that actually show up for his funeral, and then just reading through that stuff and like the little tidbits that he has for each of the different housemates is nice. And then when Frasier breaks, when he gets to him
Hmm.
and starts to choke up and stuff like that. I don't cry from this. Like I thought it was a very emotional scene, but it doesn't hit me like it hits you. But I was just like, oh man, that's some good acting right there, man. Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah. But seeing Monty just start, he's kind of, you see it in his face. He's trying to hold it back, and he breaks, and it gets me every time. And we don't end on that note. The movie ends on a pretty positive note with them
Mm.
actually having their graduation ceremony and realizing that when Monty's name is called, there's no, he didn't graduate with honors. He just graduated, and it's one of those things where it's like something he was so obsessed with earlier in the movie. He's moved on from it. He realizes there's more important things in life,
Hmm.
um, and just that little change, or not even a little change. That character growth towards the end of the movie really, it hits hard for me, and I love it. And then we have a great ceremony at the end where they all throw their caps up. They're all jumping up and down, kissing each other. And after the ceremony,
Everyone's kissing on the lips.
and after the ceremony,
Professors kiss professors. Students kiss students. Students kiss professors.
this was before any of those rules were in place.
Yes, of
Um,
course. In 2007.
and as the final scene is them walking out of Harvard campus, arm in arm, kind of talking to each other, feeling happy, and Monty picks up a stone and grabs it, and it freezes on them, kind of being optimistic and looking towards the future.
And it ends in the most 90s way possible on a freeze frame.
And with a Madonna song playing.
And with a Madonna song playing. Yes, very important. Very 90s.
Oh man, Joe, another question I want to ask is like, why do you think this thing got bad reviews?
I have absolutely no idea. I
Like I
do
could
not
understand
understand.
if you just said it was mediocre. Like I get it. Like it's nothing special.
Yeah,
But
if this
like
had like a 50 or a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, I would understand that way more.
but people like specifically the critics like actively like say this thing is terrible. Like all like even when on the Wikipedia page it was like was not received well. Even though like the weekend it did come out, it was the highest grossing for the weekend. But it was like I just try and wrap my hand around it. Like there's sometimes there are a couple lines where it's like, ooh, that was a little awkward. Like oh look, a bench, let's sit. Uh,
Oh, hi, Mark.
like stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I could get it, but like, I don't know. I don't get it, but this movie has a very special place in my heart,
Mm.
and something that, man, I love it. I love it so much, and I probably will. I have this on DVD, and something I think I'm going to show hopefully my kids in the future.
Mm. And be like, remember, this is what computers looked like in the 90s, kids. They were just these massive off-white bricks. And if anything happened to the power, all of your data was fucked. So you had to print everything on paper. And then your kids would ask you, hey, Daddy, what's paper? And you'd be like, it's a story for another time. And then you look out into your dystopian future where there's no trees and it's just dust.
Hmm.
But that's a story for another time. Joe, real quick, I'm rating this a solid 7 out of 10.
Higher than I thought you would give it.
I honestly thought I'd be giving it lower because I was like, when I went into it, I was like, I don't know, I feel this. But after rewatching it, like, it's real fresh. I watched it a few hours ago. I honestly, yeah, I think a 7 out of 10 is probably where I'd put this.
How does it put you? What mood did it help also that like you just graduated? Like, did you have any more of an emotional connection because of that?
I thought I might, but I didn't feel anything even like I didn't make any connection like that emotionally
Okay.
either in my brain or my heart or anything. I was just like, it's just a movie about people at Harvard.
Okay. So for me, I definitely the fact that like I'm like holy crap, like I've been watching this movie since I was 16. I just graduated college. I'm like wow. I'm like it hit it like literally this past weekend, and I'm like this really hit me hard. This is my favorite movie ever. This is a 10 out of 10 for me. This is the classic. This is a Joe staple. If you get to know me, you find out about With Honors. It's a special treat, and check it out. People don't know about this. Really check it out. Brendan Fraser's the fucking man, and this is it's an easy movie to watch. Why not watch it?
Yeah, it's nice. Okay, so that means it is now my turn to pick the movie that we are going to be watching for next week. I have a list, Joe, now. I've taken after you because I was like, I have a lot of things that I'm like, I should probably write down. So, looking at this list, yeah, I know what I'm going to be going with. We are going to be going with Train to Busan.
What?
Yes, Train to Busan.
What the heck is that?
Ooh, you don't know what it is.
Never
Maybe
even
don't
heard
look up anything for it and then just go onto Hulu and watch it because that's where we can find it.
Interesting. Okay, I know nothing about this. Busan sounds Japanese? Question mark?
I don't think it is. I think it's. I'm not going to say anything because I don't know what it is and I'm ignorant. I'm just going to wait until I watch this and have more information. Okay, everyone. Thank you for listening. Cup of Joe 31.1 with honors. Make sure to leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that sort of YouTube bullshittery. Maybe also comment if you were a graduate, and if so, if this movie affected you at all in ways that it didn't affect me, because I am hollow inside and feel nothing. And with that wonderfully optimistic statement out of the way, I shall tell all of you, we love you, we'll leave you, and goodbye.